did. Oh, never mind.
You don't want to say what your bad dog did on a recording?
No.
We'll talk later.
Yes.
For folks who have just joined on, we are having some technical issues in the meeting room. We're trying to get those worked out, and as soon as they're straightened out, we'll get the presentation in the room going. The format of the meeting tonight will be a hybrid, so we'll have folks in the meeting room and then all of you in the virtual meeting room. And Robbie and I are going to try to coordinate the discussion so that everybody gets a chance to participate, ask questions, and so on. Every skill power or 20 batteries interchangeable with all skill 20-volt power tools. Saving money on our in-stock selection of skill 20-volt power tools. Plus, get the perfect gift with the Menards gift card.
I'd also like to request that any materials that are presented be sent out so we can be distributed. I'm with PLAA, and I can get whatever you send me distributed to PLAA membership list.
Great. I think Robbie will address that after we start the meeting. I know he was planning to create a site that could be accessed by anybody where information will be posted for download.
That's fine.
This is one of those interactions where the work activity, first step, and then AAO office technology.
All right, can everyone online hear me and see the screen?
We can.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, we can.
Sounds good.
Look at that. Look at us go. All right. And we got a kind of a full house here actually too. So if everyone wants to have a seat, I'm short.
Oh,
it's not on that screen. Hold on.
how'd they
I'm
get
sharing
there?
my Zoom screen and I'm not. What's that?
Oh, and I said that. Jim's here, right? You know how to do it.
Hey, look at that. All right. So online, we can see the screen.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes.
Cool. You can see it's only 7 slides, so we'll go fast. And everyone's here. So this is perfect. It's a little hodgepodge, but we did it. So thank you everybody for coming. I know we're a little late, and I think Ann or James, you hit record, right?
That is correct. We're recording.
Okay, so we're recording. This is cool. This is a little unique since we kind of have a big online presence. Thank you everybody for coming, and thank you for everybody coming in person. I know the weather was a little questionable the past couple of days, but kudos to,
how do you get out? Questionable.
But I appreciate everyone coming because I think it's worth having input on a project of this scale too. I do have some 4-legged security here. If anybody is allergic to rescue, yes. Rescue. We're going to practice search and rescue tonight with my mini dachshund. Yes. So thank you, everybody. What we're gonna talk about tonight is our Gunflint Trail improvement plan.
Search and rescue.
What we have in front of us is kind of a generational, is what I've used, opportunity for grant money. We have a maximum of $25 million we can ask for in this grant. Holy shit, indeed. So if you would be so kind to mute yourself, I appreciate the input, but I like it. I think it's good. All right. So again, short presentation. Most of this is just going to be open house format. So for the people that are here in person, there's a whole bunch of maps we have out in front of us. We're all just going to talk about them. In the online presence, we have CJ Fernandez is online. He's with AFLA, as an architecture firm we have as part of our team to help kind of develop our proposal. James Yorkie is also online. And I apologize to my commissioners. I know I saw a couple of you on there. Couldn't remember who exactly, so thanks for being there. But I know online is going to be another open house format, but kind of facilitated just with those folks that are online. So kind of do this in person, online. Everybody's comments at some point in time, though, will be, you know, combined together, and we'll just kind of progress this thing along. So you can see what we're going to go over, just some quick background. We're going to check out the schedule, project that we're looking at, where we're at to date. You know, we're not starting from scratch, which is super important. And then also too, you know, opportunities, constraints for identification, map exercises, and then we have comment cards. They're in my backpack. I have to get them out. A little frazzled right now, can't tell, but we'll get there. So let's see here. So right now what we're looking at is, again, this is an opportunity for everyone to engage in this particular grant. What the grant is it's through the IIJA infrastructure bill. If you remember that huge bill that passed a couple of years ago. And so RAISE is an acronym. We know the government loves acronyms. It's rebuilding America's infrastructure sustainably and equitably. There you go. That's why I get to know. So, you know, what we submitted previously last year, I submitted about 15 miles of resurfacing to the Gunflint, and that's it. I just, you know, the end 10 miles of the road and between the 92s there, that's all I submitted, and we kind of did okay. You need 5 high scores in these merit criterias, which we'll talk about in a little bit, to advance onto another round of kind of scrutiny, and we got 3. And that was just with resurfacing and a very small portion of the road. So what we'll talk about is expanding this project to not just resurfacing, but, you know, interpretive kiosks. Is there things we want to address through mid-trail? Again, the resurfacing, culvert replacements. I mean, everything. This is a lot of money we're talking about. So I appreciate everyone. It is a very tight line. Last minute, you'll notice now they cut 2 months off of that. And so that's where last year, you know, I submitted, you know, it was just myself and a couple of our staff on it. This year we've assembled a team. LHB is an engineering firm that's going to help us out. AFLA, like I mentioned, is an architecture firm that's going to be on it as well. And then similarly, Toole Design is another kind of grant writing engineering firm that we're just all bringing together to really try and get us this money. So you can see February 8th is when this is due. This is kind of our first kickoff of, hey, let's think of some ideas. And the goal is to have, you know, at least 2 more meetings along these lines. So what we do tonight will be kind of together. We'll put together and then, you know, come back and say, all right, out of everyone's input, here's what we have going forward. So some opportunities that are in front of us. I think first and foremost, you know, some concerns that I've heard from people are, you think of millions of dollars in infrastructure and Gunflint Trail, and you think none of that can mix. But, you know, what we really want to do is preserve those intrinsic qualities that everyone knows about and loves the trail for. It's historic, it's natural, it's scenic byway. We don't want to do anything to infringe upon that. It doesn't mean we can't do anything. We're just going to do things within those, you know, constraints, I guess. So any resurfacing that we do is just kind of putting back what's there. The road, you need new pavement. We have to do it at some point, and we just put it back like it is. 11-foot lanes, 2 to 4 foot gravel shoulders. That's it. You know, this is preserving the alignment that is there. That gives a lot of character to the road, even though those curves are rather sharp. There's a little bit of love with that, I guess. We'll go over some stuff, you know, some projects that have been done in recent memory, even since I've been here, just a few years, since 2020. We've done a fair amount of work. We'll talk about projects that are on deck for the next couple of years, and then what this grant will cover. Again, you know, some of the things that are in the maps, but if we want to go through quick, broad scope, what this project is looking like, you know, we're talking resurfacing Pine Mountain Road, Water Road. It's 11.5 miles right there. Reclaim between the 92s. That's another 5.25 miles. The end 10 miles, like we talked about, reclaiming that. We can talk about the differences of reclaim, mill, and overlay later. But, you know, really looking at, you know, how things are connected up here. You can look at where people live and where properties are, and all of a sudden mid-trail pops up and all these dots are everywhere. And so, you know, and I've heard concerns about speeding and access and pedestrian friendly facilities. And so, you know, what do we want to do? We want to do something, but what do you guys want that to look like? I really want that input from you. I know the roads are bad and I can pick those spots. That's easy enough. But it's the, what do you want it to look like part that we're really looking for input on. Oh, geez, what else? It's a big project. You know, we've looked at our culvert inventory, and there's over a dozen of these medium to high priority culverts that can get replaced. Some of them might get upsized a little bit. So maybe a 24-inch turns into 36. Maybe like I'm thinking of one just south of the Seagull Creek culvert that we did a year or two ago. You know, right now it's a culvert, but that one, you know, when I stare at it, could get upsized into a bridge. A bridge is just anything 10 feet and over. And so that's, you know, so that type of stuff will also help us with the grant in saying, hey, we're doing something that's sustainable, that makes sense, that addresses climate resiliency. You know, that's one of these merit criteria, so that's a part of this. And so again, you know, there's a lot to cover with this, and I want everybody's ideas. Charging stations is another thing that's very prominent lately, and especially in this grant. You know, if it's something, I've had some talks with some businesses and folks up here that are in favor of it. And so I think it would be a partnership between the county and that business for that location. Or, you know, do we want to keep improving our turnouts that already exist? Kiosk signs, you know, stuff like that. So, you know, start getting that in your head. Couple more slides. So really the things we're hitting on: road performance, you know, safety improvements, speed management. You know, is there other things we need to consider? I want to consider trailheads or pullouts, everything, you know, anything we can look at on this road. Really at this point, you know, so get the wheels going. I want everybody up and looking at maps. I'm happy to keep talking, obviously. And, you know, we can just kind of talk about this project and see what kind of comes out of it, of our discussion. I'll get the comment cards out here in a little bit. CJ and James, if you guys want to kind of take over, if you will, the online experience. I think Commissioner Sullivan, and I think I saw Commissioner Hawkins on there as well. Feel free to moderate. We're just looking for input. You know, we have the maps, share your screens, look at stuff, and there's no bad idea right now. I want everything everybody can think of down, and what we can do is see what comes out of that. And that'll progress our project forward. So
Hey, Robbie.
Yes.
So just a question in terms of process, is there, I mean, it sounds like we're going to have sort of two discrete discussion breakouts, the in the room and then the online version. And then, but are we kind of coming back at the end to kind of share ideas, or how do you want to do that?
I think what we'll do is just kind of keep them a little separate right now. I just want to see what everyone's saying. And I think that next meeting we have will just show all the ideas together. And so that's where the combination, I think, will occur. I want to give everybody here, obviously, you know, the opportunity to chat with me about the project as well. And I know CJ's been involved too from the beginning on this, so he's can more than answer people's questions online. And James, you and I have even talked about it quite a bit. So I think, you know, for now, I think it'll be kind of an in-person contingency and an online contingency. And then our next meeting will show, here's kind of what everybody came up with. And then, you know, here's kind of what we're going to progress forward. Does that sound good?
Roger that.
Dig it. All right. CJ, are you online? Please say yes.
Yep, I'm here.
There we go. All right. Awesome. So I'll leave it to you guys. I'm going to mute us in the room, if that's okay. And I'll probably just mute everybody. So then we're not sitting here providing feedback for all of you. You all aren't providing aggressive feedback for us. I promise we're still here. We're not going to Poplar House or wherever, you know, maybe we will. I don't know yet. No, they are. Oh, all right. That's right. It's that time of year. Anyways. Yeah, see, there we go. All right. Well, I appreciate it. Obviously, whatever questions come out of tonight, just call me anytime. If you have email, you know, email me, call me, stop down. I'm happy to come up too and just talk. This is kind of a quick turnaround on the grant. It's due in February and it's a hurry up and wait. We submit, but then if we get it, the earliest we could construct is 2028. And yes, so that's where we kind of get a prelim. And so, but it's 6 years to really detail this thing out. The hurry up and wait part's just preliminary. Here's what we're going to do here. We're going to do, you know, a trail at mid trail, and it'll kind of look like this or something, and some interpretive kiosks here, and here. It can be very surface level like that. So I'll turn over all the online stuff to you all. I'm going to mute some stuff. I'll pop in and out here a little bit just in case there's something that comes up, but let's do this. Let's talk about the Gunflint. All right. So
We have some what I would call basic principles. For example, the Scenic Byway, there's certain things there.
Yep.
There's safety, animal safety.
Yeah, I think.
As well as people. But I'm thinking that you know, I think we should agree on what basic things we're trying to accomplish.
Sure.
We can't figure out how to do it. We just know the next one where we want to go.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And it does. Yeah. And I think it almost gets back to, you know, I don't think we need to really go over which parts of the road are bad and which ones aren't. I kind of already know that. I have data for that, and we've highlighted that in a lot of it too. But I think to those points of if there are concerns with animal crossing or people crossings or whatever, you know, some overriding themes are, yeah, we want to preserve the historic, you know, natures of the road, the natural qualities of the road. You know, it's not, you know, you can say you want a 4-lane highway, but honestly, at the end of the day, it's not going to be that. But, you know, it's a conversation though of what can we do that fits these qualities that will still, you know, improve the road. If you want to think about it that way. Does that answer your question? Perfect. Any other? Yes.
So are there rules about for a road like the Gunflint Trail, how far you drive before you have a turnout that's so severe? Since it's a 2-laner on the same shoulder.
Sure.
Are there rules that govern that, or because it's a scenic byway, is it different?
I don't know that there is. You mean you look at some of the, and you're just referring to some of the like scenic, the turnoffs or the like.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm coming from speeding in the road.
Sure.
So how many times have I been passed?
Yeah.
A lot. And so when I start driving, especially in the winter when I'm going slow, because it's icy,
Yep.
you know, it's like, okay, where's my next pull off so I can let some crazy go by.
Sure.
And so it seems like there should be more of those.
Sure. I think
where all of them are, like the real river crossings, like you pull in somewhere and this and that, but you know, are there other guidelines for that?
I don't know that there are. I think I could dig into it and see, but I look at what's out there now, and you have some that are right next to the road. You have some that are a little driveway and then you're into something. So I think at that point, you know, we would just look at kind of honestly what the right of way is there. Is it county owned, or who's next to it? Is it the Forest Service? Is it private property? You know, and what that, you know, looks like. But I think it's something to talk about. If we think there needs to be more, I got Post-it notes and pens as well. And I just want everybody to doodle on these. If these are clean when I go home, I'm gonna be a little upset, to be honest.
So similarly, are there rules about a scenic byway like this where you can't have a milepost? So I just got a flat tire. I happen to get a cell signal and I'm somewhere east of Bearskin turnoff.
Sure.
You know, is there any way you can have mileage markers?
There's, yeah, what the scenic byway and the historic is more of just preserving what's there. So when you look at like how a road is signed, if we went with standards, say like MnDOT, if I just went by the book, I mean, that's a lot. and I don't want to do that, whether it's a scenic byway or even our regular roads. You know, I think signage should be used sparingly. And in my opinion, that becomes more effective then. You're just sitting there looking at stuff all the time, you're going to start ignoring everything.
Well, and cell coverage is slowly creeping.
Sure.
Both directions. And so again, if you have an emergency,
yep,
often think it's cell signal somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know where I am, but I'm used to trail center or whatever.
Sure.
Someone will come help me.
Yeah.
You don't have to find a car to drive to town and get a signal.
We all have those inReach.
Cell phones have locators.
Yeah. And we all have those inReach things now anyways, right? Anyways, all right. Any other questions? Baseline stuff online? Any questions kind of in that same vein of what we're looking to get? I'm sure CJ and James will be happy to answer them. Or before I hit mute, any questions?
Where are the maps?
So CJ's got them. He's gonna share his screen with everyone online, and so they'll be able to pop up here and there. Is that right, CJ? Yes, I saw it.
Yeah, that's right.
Got it. Great. Okay, here we go. We're doing it. All right, I'm gonna hit mute on here, and then we're gonna have a party. It's gonna be great. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Well, this is kind of free form here. I hope everybody kind of understands the intention here. So this is really about gathering your input on elements that you would like to see included in this grant proposal. And there are, as Robbie said, this is not about like identifying sections of road that need to be replaced, not about the physical condition of the road, because we have that information already. It's more about other kinds of aesthetic or functional issues that you may be concerned about, things like animal crossings and that sort of thing. And CJ, do you want to, I don't know how best to kind of like break this up. Do you want to kind of lead the discussion, or, and I was also going to ask, I know there's at least one person in the virtual meeting room who knows shorthand, and I'm looking at you, Miss Shorthand. Might be good. I mean, we're recording this, might be good to have a few notes on some of the salient parts of the discussion as they come up.
I will take notes.
All right. Thank you so much, Commissioner. Okay. So, CJ, do you want to kind of lead us off?
Can we speak at all? Those of us who are online?
Yeah,
Oh,
of course.
absolutely.
Yeah.
This is
okay, a couple of things. Kind of housekeeping stuff. I don't know who CJ is, number one. Number two, I think the people that are in attendance at the meeting would please identify themselves when they're talking or asking questions, so we know who they are. We want to know who our neighbors, what neighbors of ours are there. I can see people online, but I don't know who's at the meeting. We were told not to travel. The Highway Department for Cook County told us not to travel, and that was on TIP all day today. So I'm really interested in why this meeting wasn't postponed in view of the weather. Nonetheless, we can still give our input and participate, and that's good. But please, can people identify themselves who are speaking? Thank you.
Thank you, Biz.
And I think in terms of the answer to why this was not postponed, again, there's a fairly short timeline for getting public input into the grant application. And so it's not ideal that this is happening on a bad weather day. But I do hope that the virtual meeting component allows people to safely participate. So I introduced myself earlier. I'm James Yorkie. I'm the county administrator, helping Robbie out in the facilitating the virtual part of this. And CJ is one of our consultants. And CJ, do you want to introduce yourself and then maybe kick off our discussion?
Yep, thanks a lot, James. I'm CJ Fernandez with Ani Fernandez Landscape Architects. We were asked to participate in the project, which is really a planning effort, and to help facilitate a meeting to solicit community input and really kind of garner and document the feelings and the opinions of the community that are interested in potential improvements of the road. And I think what I'll do, if I can share here, is just hit a couple slides that Robbie had just presented. He was moving pretty fast, so I think it'd help us kind of ground ourselves. And then really what we're hoping today is just to have an open discussion, open format about your thoughts, opportunities, and concerns corridor wide. So from beginning to end of the trail. So I think with that, if there's not any immediate questions, I can share my screen. And so this is the slide deck that Robbie had just shown, the exact same one. And I'll just step through it quickly, but it's, there's some background, and this is our agenda. And what we want to spend most of our time with today is, an exercise, which is really a discussion and dialogue about the potentials for the project. Robbie covered that, there's this RAISE grant that really has quite a large amount of money that can be leveraged. And there has been some work on this to date. He made an application for this last year, and I think he sort of undersold what he did, but he did extremely well with an application of the 6 categories. He achieved a high level grade on 3 of them and a medium on the others. And so, the reality of getting dollars for improvements is there. Today it's December 15th, and really what we're doing is identifying opportunities. We'll be back in mid to late January to look at how all of these ideas are turning into a plan. It'll be wide open for feedback and comment at that meeting. We'll take all of those comments again and revise the plan. And in the February meeting, then early to mid-February, there'll be some presentation about the application, specifically what's being requested, and really a full overview of how this is going to move forward. And the application goes in at the end of February.
Check it out. Yeah. Leading Santa and Mrs. Claus to Children's Ministry.
So not sure what that was, but I think the key things that we wanted to state today, Robbie's been extremely clear about this since I came on board, which is one, he's not widening the road. There should be no changes to it. There may be some things where there's structurally some things going down or wrong with the road, but really it's about replacing what's there, and that the alignment itself would be preserved. It's not going to be straightened. The rolls in the topography of the road are to be maintained. And that is the basis from which we're starting. And so is summarized here, and this will be made available after the meetings as well, are projects that are going to be implemented yet next year that have, I'm sorry, in 24, that have nothing to do with the RAISE grant. And then on the right is a list of all of the projects that the RAISE grant could address. And I'll show you a map as to what kind of coverage that is of the road. Right now, all of the projects are a reclaim or a mill and overlay, which is essentially just reworking the road that's there and putting on new pavement and maybe some base improvements, and then replacing culverts that have deteriorated and are in need of replacement. The part of the project and the specifics of the RAISE grant that really has a strong community interest is that the dollars can be used for community improvements. So those could be safety improvements, connectivity within the community or along the corridor, speed management, any other improvements that get identified that fit within the requirements of the grant can be addressed and actually strengthen the application. So there was some mentioning already of, at mid-trail having potentially another more pedestrian-oriented pathway, maybe within the road corridor parallel to it. Things like that would all be, potentially included in the project. It is a scenic byway. Pull-offs were mentioned earlier in the meeting. Those types of improvements are, within the realm of the RAISE grant. Might be a scenic overlook or an interpretive stop. It could be an improved trailhead where there already is a trail where people park, whether they're snowmobiling or hiking or whatever they're doing recreationally. All the trailheads potentially have are fair game for the RAISE grant. So all of this really is just kind of the beginning, some of the key things that the RAISE grant could address. And so that's what we're here to hear about, kind of needs, concerns, and other opportunities for improvement. And it's a wide group, it's a long corridor. So we recognize that there's people from up and down the corridor, maybe folks that have interest in the entire corridor for improvements corridor wide. And so we're here to listen and identify what all those opportunities are. That's the focus of today. I'll come back to the next steps, and I'm going to show you a few maps in the meantime here, but we'll take down and notate, and we'll go back and watch the video and develop a full list of potential projects. People may suggest things that don't fit within the grant application, that they're not eligible for funding. So, we'll try and work in as many things as possible, but not maybe everything, depending what people are looking for improvements could be included. Working directly with Cook County, we'll formulate a plan and bring that back. And so that'll be viewed publicly again, similar to how it's going tonight. And then based on the feedback at the next meeting, we'll revise that plan again. And that preferred plan would then become the basis of the application. And then last year, I'll show just some maps that we have. And these are really just to point and facilitate a discussion. But there is one map I want to show. We have the whole corridor shown on this map. We have blowups at Trail's End, the whole mid-trail area or region. We also have blowups for that. We also have blowups of maps so we can see a finer detail closer to Grand Marais. And then this is the one map that I wanted to show, which has previous projects as well as projects that are identified for improvements. And so, you know, Robbie was referring to this as a generational project. Everything in green are improvements that have been made within the last 3 to 4 years. And so, you know, we can see those starting at the end of the trail or at the top of the trail, different projects, culverts, bridge work that happened in 21, other section of reclaim from Trout Road to Pine Mountain Road. Again, that's in green. The projects that we mentioned and that are in 2024 are shown in yellow. So those are right here. And so there's Middle of the Hill and the bridge replacement. And so there's currently a culvert at Devil's Track River. And so a bridge is going to be installed, and then the remediation of that waterway is going to happen. So there should be an improved kind of environmental condition there. And then there's a multi-use trail connection from 5th to 5th that would also be constructed. And then what we're here today to talk about is to focus in on everything in red. And so this grant has the potential for, I think there's identified 13 culvert replacements that we know about right now, and then sections of road that would be mill and overlay and reclaim. And so we're looking at significant portions of the road for a road that's, you know, difficult to fund at this scale. It's a big opportunity to, you know, simply get the road rebuilt for the foreseeable future. Any questions or comments at this point?
Do you know how much just the road improvements alone would approximately cost?
I don't know offhand. Brad Scott from LHB Engineers out of Duluth is also on the meeting. Brad, I don't know if you're familiar with that number, or James, or if it's even been calculated yet, or what was used last year for the grant ask.
I don't know, Robbie. If Robbie, it probably would fall to you to answer that question at this point. I don't have that number top of mind.
I think Robbie did mention earlier that it's a range depending on the location of the pavement that would be replaced. And it was in the neighborhood of $500,000 to $750,000 per mile. And that was at last year's cost.
So I think the degree to which we understand the numbers now, we could follow up with information. And then at the next meeting, we could be more specific about that as well, about what those costs are.
CJ?
Yeah.
To what extent has the planning team taken into account in its preliminary planning all of the information that the mid-trail or the PLAA group submitted to our representative, our commissioner, to Robbie, to Pat Eliason, over several minutes or several meetings that we've had since the end of summer and into the fall? We've had a number of meetings. We have solicited information from our mid-trail group. We passed out surveys, and we presented the results of those surveys. What's happened to all of that? And that's number one question. Number two, Robbie sent out a request for support for this grant. It seems a little preemptive at this point to ask for that kind of support when we don't know what we're supporting. And when will specifics be available to us so that we can either support or at least comment on this?
So I think to your first question, all of that information, I believe all of that information is absolutely part of the mix and part of quite a bit of discussions that we have had. We're new to the project, so we're getting up to speed. So I would defer a little bit to Robbie just on all of the the specifics as of today, as to the information that's been gathered. I know that there are concerns with traffic speeds, safety related to the road and pedestrians. The circulation, especially for pedestrians through mid-trail, is difficult, and there may be opportunities there for improvements, whether it's a trail or some kind of parallel pathway, or maybe there's a widening of the shoulder that allows for that type of access. The specific kind of answers we don't know. And so when I think this kind of gets into the second part of your question, the process that we're in right now is to continue to gather information both at mid-trail as well as corridor wide, and then bring the solutions back to the community so that you have the specifics. And then in regards to the request for support, I'm not sure exactly of the timing of it. I do know that support for the application is critical in its success. So that's why the requests are going out. I don't think anybody that we've interfaced with is expecting anybody to support this until we work through the process. So I think
that's understood.
It is with everybody that I've been working with. And just to be clear too, the discussions that have had related to the corridor to date have really focused on mid-trail. And so we do have some catch up to do with the rest of the trail, as well as to get the other consultants involved understanding what the mid-trail needs are. So we can put pen to paper, so to speak, and generate some ideas, and then bring them back to the community and see what works and what doesn't work. So it's, we're in progress, I guess would be a way to understand that. But the information is certainly there and has been kind of the core of everything we've been talking about to date. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, Keith Randa here. We're at the upper end of the trail. I guess I have a couple suggestions that I'd like to maybe see. Right now, the South Lake Trail, which is at mid-trail, has no parking. So as we drive by, I'm not sure if you end up parking at one of the lodges and walking, but there's no parking access to that trail. That trail simply comes off of the Gunflint Trail, unless someone else knows there's something else there. So that would be one of a suggestion I would have. I'd also like to say that I'm not in favor of creating any animal crossings. I know that driving out west, I've seen the high fences, the opening to try to get the elk and the deer to cross in specific spots. I don't know that our moose traveling is consistent enough to put the money in to create a fence to herd the moose to only cross in certain places. So I guess I would make those two comments to maybe start the suggestions for that.
And I would follow up that comment. Thank you for that input. That, yeah, Rockwood Lodge provides parking, but visitors would not know that. And so to have something more evident for going on the South Trail would be very helpful. So I agree.
Thanks a lot. Those are great comments. Any other comments along those lines, other resources that are lacking or missing?
What? I'd like to suggest, Dave Coleman here, and I'm with the Scenic Byway Committee and also the Gunflint Trail Historical Society. I think more turnoffs would be a huge thing, particularly if they're done tastefully and if they have good signage with them, in terms of historical information, et cetera, would be just absolutely huge and really, really important. Number two, and I don't know how this really fits in there, is that the forestry work that was done just north of George Washington Pines last year. It's really created a disconnect in my mind in terms of what you see when you come up the trail. And I would like to think that there can be some collaboration between the highway department and the Forest Service, et cetera, to avoid that kind of glaring disconnect that you get when going through a couple of miles there. I don't know if that's possible, but to me, that's very important. And number 3 is that we have worked, the Byway Committee, pretty steady for a long period of time now to reduce the amount of glaring signage as you come up and go down the road. And we've made really good progress on that. I think Robbie has been very understanding and very efficient, but I think we need to continue to do that, to have the necessary signage, but not stuff that's going to blare in your eyes every time you come to a turn or whatever. So to me, those are probably 3 of the important things from my perspective. So thank you.
And if I can add on to that, what David said with those pull-offs, there are 2 pull-offs past Iron Lake, almost to Moon Lake, that are just small ones. I'd say they don't fit more than 2 cars, but they at least give you space to get your vehicle off the trail. So I don't know that it needs, I don't see it, at least on the upper trail, needing to be real complex, but just a little widening to get a vehicle off the trail would be helpful.
Keith, thank you. I agree with that.
Can I get back on that Animal Crossing thing? I know there's a huge safety concern about, people coming up on moose and things, but also I don't know how often, like if there was ever a plan to get more of the vegetation off of the sides of the road to allow people to see one, but I don't know if that would have a negative impact on animal movement. Like if there was a wider section of brush cleared away in terms of safety, whether that would impact the animals. So I would myself prefer, less of that and maybe just signage of, this is an area where they cross more, so that people be more cautious. And as long as I'm talking, I don't know if one of the things that could be invasive plants along the shoulder, if that would fit in with this kind of a grant, because that's technically not infrastructure, but that would be if there's money to use, that might be a good place to use it. And talking about the mid-trail area for the speed, I know like one of the options is to reduce the speed, but I know there's been a lot of like homemade signs and things, and it doesn't appear that it's almost impossible to get people to slow down in that area. So I think that, in terms of planning, that might be something in the back of your mind. Reducing the speed when they're already speeding faster than the speed limit is, I don't know that would be very effective. And yeah, that's about all I had to mention.
Other comments?
This is Mindy Frederickson. I'm up at Gunflint Lodge and just was wondering if we have the option of using some of this grant money for multi-use trails alongside the Gunflint Trail. I think that having a place where people could ride bikes and walk their dogs and that sort of thing off of the actual trail would be helpful.
Yes, I think it is within the realm of the grant. There's some particulars with, ownership and where the trails are going and kind of permissions and things like that. It gets a little bit into the weeds. but the potential for multi-use trails is definitely part of the discussion. So we're very interested in hearing any specifics or general ideas. If we have locations where you feel, or the general consensus is where those might be needed. That's really helpful information for us to get tonight.
Okay. I think also, another suggestion or solution that has been suggested in the past is, also just widening the road so that you had, shoulders where people who are walking or biking can get off of the lane of traffic. I don't know if that would be as helpful, but it might be a less expensive option. And, from my perspective, I would love to see that accessibility available throughout the entire Gunflint Trail. I know that's probably not reasonable or realistic within this particular grant, but I'd love to see, sort of a focus of starting to do that work and make the Gunflint Trail accessible for pedestrians and bikers and other things besides just vehicles.
And I guess to add to that, Minnie's comments about that, I don't think I want to see a pedestrian path like I see in the Twin Cities metro area. A paved trail that's 3 or 4 yards wide, running down the side. Having a wider shoulder on one side would be good, or if there was a possibility to put in a trail that was off the road would be fine. But even at mid-trail, I don't know that I want to see adding a paved path for walkers. I don't think that would add to the character of the trail. I know that in the upper part of the trail, they're really past Gunflint Wake, Gunflint Lodge, there isn't really a lot of traffic, except in the summer. Winter here is pretty easy. There isn't a lot of automobile traffic that you have to worry about once you get to about Gunflint Wake. A little more south of that, but it's a different ball of wax than mid-trail. I think mid-trail has some different needs for that.
I would disagree. I think that all along the Gunflint Trail, it would be safer and more welcoming if there was a safe place to walk. So again, I don't know how you measure the different input and feedback and perspective on this, but we would disagree with it.
The designation of the Scenic Byway protects us from all of these suggestions and opinions. The Scenic Byway plan says no walking trails, no paths, no changing, no widening of the shoulders. And in the mid-trail area, the county actually has right-of-way and is allowing a business to park cars in the county's right-of-way. So, the county has options for taking back its own rights and allowing people to walk. And the Gunflint Trail is different from every other road in Minnesota and America for a reason. And it doesn't need to look like every other road.
But it does need to pay attention to safety for people
and
who
stay
are
off of it if you
accessing
feel safe.
that place. So I'll just say, I'm asking the question of how do we measure the input that we should and feedback. That's what this process is about.
Then read the Scenic Byway Guide Plan and look at it.
I just wanted to acknowledge, Mark, you've been patiently holding your hand up for several minutes, so please go ahead.
So I would just say that there's feedback that should be heard and that nothing is written in stone as far as the Scenic Byway guidelines. So let's.
Well, thank you. I want to weigh in, I guess, on Mindy's side and the importance of making the trail the best it can be for pedestrians and bikers and other non-motorized people. And I don't know the answer to the legal question. I guess I'm hearing two things. I'm hearing from the experts that it is doable, and then I'm hearing from some other folks that it's not. So, that's a good thing to probably get a little bit more background on. my wife and I live on Voyagers Point, Luray Osborne, and we enjoy all the activities in the area. I particularly am a bike rider. The trail is a great place to ride. It's kind of medium level, challenging, and some places it has very good surfaces, other places not so good. But I would take issue with the point that was made on safety. It is recommended as a road not to ride a bicycle on for the reasons that it doesn't have good shoulders and that it does have quite a bit of traffic. Now, obviously that varies over the time of year and maybe the position on the trail, but I ride the full trail, and I've done a lot of bike riding. It doesn't really intimidate me, but there's a lot of traffic and those big trucks go whizzing by. Some sort of accommodation for pedestrians and bikers would be a terrific thing. And this is not really my area of expertise. I have quite a bit of background in environmental matters, but I've done just a tiny bit of trail planning. And part of the way it works, I think, is to get some kind of a idea of where you're going, so that as the money comes available, you can fill in the pieces as you work out those land issues. So I think a scheme that doesn't address bicycles and pedestrians is really missing a huge opportunity. And I'm new to all this. We're in the mid-trail. I didn't participate in the survey that Biz talks about. I don't know what the answers are. But boy, I've done enough grant work to know that, if you've got I may be using the wrong terms here, but if you've got a multimodal emphasis, that's going to bump you up some. If you're building a transportation route that's good for cars only, that's going to be a negative. So I don't know what else I have to say, but I vote for finding some way to address this that can work out for as many folks as possible, because it's a huge opportunity.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. I do some biking. I've kind of stopped biking on the Gunflint because I feel it's too dangerous, but I see a lot more people walking along, especially in the mid-trail area. And I think there's a great opportunity to do something there. Again, even if it's just on the shoulder, some separation from traffic. People speed through there. Maybe there's some way we can put speed bumps or something in to slow down the traffic, or some other signage that narrows the lane so that people feel like they have to slow down. I think things like that would be very beneficial.
Not having shoulders automatically slows traffic down.
I think there are some other opportunities, probably, to slow down traffic. I think we could just look around the country, and a lot of places do certain things like putting in some sort of separation between the traffic. So I think there are opportunities other than just saying, let's just keep it the way it is. I don't think that's the answer.
That is the answer according to the Scenic Byway. You can find it online and look at it. The point of it is to keep the Gunflint Trail as much as it is for hundreds of years to come.
I think it would.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. Comment I make is I would agree with Heidi's on keeping it the way it is. I'm against any form of reducing the speed. I think if anything else, the sheriffs should patrol that area if it's a concern about speeding. I think 45 is adequate through that area now as stands. I just wanted to throw that in there as an opposing viewpoint.
I think if this is once in a decade or 2 or 3, that it should certainly include walking and biking. And on up the trail to the end of the trail.
Thank you. Other comments?
So I'd pick up on what Dave Coleman said earlier. I'm David Berg. I wonder if there's a way to think about improving or enhancing the scenic part of the road, and so the longer into the summer we could delay the mowing, the more wildflowers we have a chance to enjoy in the ditch. And I would also wonder if it's possible for some tree planting to happen in the area just past the George Washington Pines, where all of the logging happened in the last couple of years, so that there at least be some scenic aspect to that element there that's not there. And then a third suggestion or question I would have is, I wonder if it's possible to have at some of the main roads where there are lodges, if it'd be possible to have turn lanes to help with the traffic flow.
This is Debbie Benedict. I am tending to agree with Heidi and the parameters of what a scenic byway is supposed to be. We're taking a historical highway and turning it into everywhere USA by adding trails, bike trails, walking trails. There are a lot of trails off the Gunflint Trail that are for hiking, and that all adds to the character of where we live in one of the remotest and darkest and natural areas around. And so I really don't agree with anything other than resurfacing, maybe controlling some of the invasive species that are growing up along the road, and let folks, if they want to bike and hike, use the trails that are existed there, or the roads, the back or the side roads that people already use to do their biking. I'm all for resurfacing. I'd like to see signage kept to a minimum. I think everything that we're doing here is disturbing the integrity of what we've got going on and what is attracting people to our place right now. Thank you.
The Scenic Byway Plan does have vegetation management, which includes invasive plants, the shoulders, and tree planting and things like that. And there's a great partnership with the Scenic Byway Committee and the Forest Service and the county. And so those things are being addressed, and the mowing is specifically addressed to mitigate any invasive plant species coming into the area.
Hey, this is Mark Ellis. Yeah, I agree with what Deb Benedict said. You know, there are all sorts of hiking trails all around the Gunflint Trail. And if you want to go biking, you can go down to the shore. Biking just is not a character of the Gunflint Trail as is.
I disagree. This is my neighborhood on Loon Lake. I would like to bike. I would like to walk one shoulder, and it's not safe.
CJ, this is Carol Berg. I'm wondering, what is the best way, besides this open meeting, to give you input that would be helpful for the grant application and going forward?
Well, I think, you know, the process of documenting all the comments today is the first step. Robbie has stated that anybody can reach him, I think, at any point in time, via email, a phone call, or arrange a meeting to give him more feedback or additional information, or have follow-up discussions as needed. And so that, you know, we're engaging in a dialogue. And so I think those are the main mechanisms to get opinions on the table. And I think more so get it in the hands of Robbie as well. You know, I think Brad, you know, reminded me that the grant priorities are for safety, sustainability, improvements to quality of life, economic competitiveness, and ensuring a state of good repair. And so that's all kind of corridor road based, but it's all the relationships that exist around it as well. It's a broad description that lends itself to lots of different types of projects. And also, you know, it is to be in line with the historic nature of the corridor as well. So, I mean, as you can see with the discussion, there's not necessarily alignment on everyone's opinions, nor is there like easy solutions for things. But I think that's what we're here to do, is to take all of these opinions, and if there's issues with safety and needs for enhanced recreation, that we can start to look at those, and that we look at them within the context of the historic qualities of the road. I feel what's most important tonight is that we have the discussion, you know, and I think the voices and the opinions have to be heard. They all have valid points, you know, and certainly on the front of invasives and species management, things like that, I think there's probably opportunities along all of these lines for potential inclusion in the project. So there'll be a ways to go with this, and the information and the process will be ongoing for the next 2 months. But in between meetings, if there's additional reach out that's needed or wanted, Robbie's the point of contact for all of that, and he may loop us, the consultant team, into those discussions as well. We'll kind of follow his lead on how he wants that to happen. That said, I think the dialogue is great, and so I'm interested in continuing to hear any thoughts or concerns, issues, improvements, or other areas of concern that you have with the corridor.
After becoming a priest, he worked there.
We could make it safe for walkers and bikers again and turn it back to what it was in the early 1800s, which was a dirt footpath.
I think that's what one of our survey people said. Let's take up the macadam and put the gravel back. And that will solve a lot of problems there. A couple of things. The highway department and public safety, et cetera, aren't the only actors here. It seems as though development is occurring on the north side of the trail, particularly in the mid-trail area. So we have to take a look at how the Planning Commission is responding to requests for building permits, variances, and this sort of thing. There are more and more accesses to the trail from the north side of the trail. And so we need to look at those kinds of things. One of the things that has not been done, and this goes back to what Mark was saying and several others, is that we really haven't looked at what the increase in the amount of foot or bike travel over a period of time on the trail. And we really don't have a handle on whether or not at the time the Scenic Byway came into being, and now if there has been a significant change in our population, a population that clearly would like to use the trail, the roadway, as a walking area, as a biking area. Also, we know that four-wheelers use it now. There's a lot more people in the mid-trail area. And these people need to feel safe if they're out there. And I agree that the trail has not been really thought of as an access for hikers and bikers and this sort of thing. But it's going to happen. I don't know how you stop that. Excuse me. And if we put a parallel walking trail, who is going to instruct moose to use that instead of crossing the highway, where they typically do? I don't mean to be cavalier about it, but the fact that we do have a lot of animals, we have a lot of people who are feeding foxes in the areas overrun with them. But I guess we can expect that. We hate to see anything happen to people, and we certainly don't want to see more moose killed, although that's hard to control.
This is Mark Tenike again. I'm sorry, Biz, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so I think a lot of attention needs to be paid to this increase in population in the mid-trail area and a variety of uses that may not have been anticipated at the time the Scenic Byway was declared, and through the life of the trail since it's been paved. That's all, Mark.
Well, I think it's an interesting point that the historic character of the trail doesn't have a whole lot in common with what we have today. But the question I wanted to ask is, I think CJ, early on, you talked about posting some things or a website. Could we get on that website or posting, a little bit more background on the criteria for the grant? I think in making comments, people would want to focus their comments on how what they're suggesting fit with the criteria of the grant, and also some background information on the Scenic Byway. What's the history of that? What documents control? How do they control? I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I think we can make sure that happens. I'll follow up with Robbie and get a handle on what's being planned. I'm not sure if it's coming through the county or the other consultants, but I will follow up on that.
Also, one other thing, CJ, the PLAA Safety Committee has requested the placement of a trailer radar operated sign. The changes in the trail are not going to be occurring for a number of years. We're going to have these kinds of problems with traffic, until any adjustments are made, and we don't know what they're going to be. We've been promised the use of a trailer radar sign that hasn't been forthcoming. And I think we need to explore that a little bit too, as an interim resolution, not solution, but resolution to the problem. Let's try it and see if we can slow some of this traffic down by using that kind of sign. We've had one up here periodically. I don't know whether or not it's made any difference. I don't know that we have any data on that, but it would be interesting. At any rate, I think the safety committee is still looking for the use of the trailered sign.
I've got that noted, and I'm assuming at this point the area for the signs has been targeted or expressed.
Well, it's the mid-trail area.
Okay.
The area on the map.
Yep.
We are also the summer president of PLAA is working with the post office to move our mailboxes from across the trail at Voyager Point and the trail intersection down closer to where most of the people live on Voyager Point. So we don't have to cross the trail. The crossing there, if you're going north, on the left is a hill. You can't see what's coming up that hill. You can't hear it. A lot of us don't hear well. And so, you know, you're kind of taking your life in your hands as you cross. And as we were taught early on, we look both ways, but you really can't see what's coming at you at 50 or 60 miles an hour. So that was one of the reasons we also wanted to move those mailboxes, but we don't know how that is going to work out well with the post office.
I just want to follow up on business comments. As Robbie said in a speed survey, you know, the areas further east on the trail, the average speed was between 5 and 10 miles an hour above the speed limit. Well, down where those mailboxes are located, the speed limit is 50. So using the same equation, you just factor in and it's the traffic coming from the west that comes up that hill by the launcher engine divide. It's a hill there, and they're probably averaging about 60 miles an hour, and they've got this short period in here before they get to the mailboxes and people are crossing the road. It's a very dangerous situation.
CJ, can you include funding to cover making sure that the lakes near the roadway are protected with whatever decisions are made? I know that there have been some things done over the years that have impacted our waters.
Absolutely, we can note that. Are there any specifics that you're thinking of, or just making sure it's at the forefront if any road improvements are made?
Making sure it's at the forefront. I think we forget. Sometimes it gets put last on the list. You know, a lot of times people want to have more salt and sand on the roads because they think that makes it safer. And then we find out that that impacts our waters. And so
that's right. I don't think Heidi, that makes a really good point. With more building, particularly on the north side of the trail, their septic systems and all of the construction and living in those areas or using those areas for storage, all that drains into poplar. Water just tends to have a habit of going downhill, and poplar gets the brunt of that.
Who are the identified constituencies of this issue?
Are you talking about the whole issue, CJ?
Yeah, you bet. Is it just the residents, or is it people from the Twin Cities, or, you know, the trucks that drive up and down, construction vehicles? Who are the constituents?
Well, certainly it's the residents.
Well, then why can't I walk in my neighborhood off of Loon Lake on a safe shoulder?
You can walk wherever you want. We're just not going to rebuild or change the road for you to walk.
Okay, people have been killed here.
Yeah.
So it's about the trucks that come and go?
No, it's about preserving the Gunflint Trail.
And what does that mean? And what does that mean? And that's what was raised before as a question. What does the corridor preservation mean?
It means leaving it the way it currently is.
No, it was gravel.
Yep. Not even 20 years ago.
Yep.
So as to find
I
the
suggested
balance,
going back to gravel.
but the balance of the enjoyment of the environment, not impacting negatively the environment that we are guests of, but also doing what we can to preserve safety for people who are using the trail.
I agree.
I challenge people to look at all the development on the North Shore of Poplar Lake and tell me how that's consistent with a wilderness experience. I mean, and that's been going on for years. And I haven't seen the Scenic Byway Committee do anything about what that area looks like in terms of being a natural environment. I think, you know, we move ahead, make common sense safety improvements and usability improvements. It maintains the character of the Gunflint Trail better than what it's been maintained in the past.
Agreed.
Well, I can say that, and I think Peter would agree with me, that we would like to see something done leading up to this summer. Something that would help us feel a little bit safer and a little bit more secure in our use of the trail, if we're walking on it or walking our dogs or biking or whatever. We need to do this. Traffic has increased over a period of time. Things that couldn't have been contemplated some number of years back are happening now. I agree with Pete that development is occurring. It's occurring on the north side of the trail, and that means more entrances to the trail. It means the viewscape has been affected. Lots of things. Otherwise, what we need to do is post signs on the trail: no walking, no hiking, no biking. We can't do that. We're not going to keep people off the trail. It's public. And I think we need to keep that in mind, that this is public road, and people can do on that road unless it is otherwise signed. For example, shouldn't run your snowmobiles on it, but we do, people do. Those kinds of things. We need to keep in mind the fact that we've got a lot of people now that we may not have had when making this a scenic byway was originally contemplated. And I don't see that stopping. I don't see development stopping. It's a very desirable area.
For me, so I think one thing that we need to acknowledge is that amongst the Gunflint Trail, we have really 3 separate corridors going on. Well, 4 probably. We have from Grand Marais to George Washington Pines, a little more things. We go from George Washington Pines to Mid-Trail to the fire hall. And we go from the fire hall till the overlook with the Laurentian Divide, Mid-Trail, Poplar Lake area. Then we go from there on. And what we end up with is each of those areas has a different desire and need for what the trail should look like. Because up here past, there isn't a lot of traffic. You could be out walking and running, and you could maybe see 3 or 4 vehicles, and you might need to get those vehicles, and you might need to go in the ditch to get out of the way. But there isn't a lot of traffic. That's different at Mid-Trail. And so as we do this planning, there are those different areas, and they each have different desires and needs for what the trail should look like, all fitting within what is the scenic byway, because it is scenic. I don't want to train moose to have to cross a trail. That's not what we want to do, or foxes.
there's a number of great points there. And a lot of the discussion is focused in and around the mid-trail area, which we can continue to do. That's not an issue at all. But I am interested if there are other comments about the other sections of the trail, whether it's down closer to Grand Marais or further up towards the end of the trail.
Yeah, I think the greatest population is around Poplar Lake mid-trail, but that should not diminish the interests of the whole trail.
I agree with that comment that Jim made, that there's several different areas that we need to be concerned about. While there may be issues with the center trail area, there are other areas that need to be addressed also, and identify what those needs are for each of the areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any thoughts or comments about how the trail relates to the area in and around Grand Marais? And is there anything notable there, whether it's issues and concerns or things that are missing or other resources that should be thought of?
This is Carol Berg. I just wanted to make a comment that the road is already there. We're already invading where we are guests, and how to be mindful of that balance of how are we respecting the wilderness, at the same time making the wilderness available to folks, whether they're going to support the future of the wilderness or not, how to make that happen.
And Carol, that ties in with something that I've heard from people about utilizing some of the pullouts. And I'm thinking right now, the one right by Greenwood Lake, of that potentially being an example of where you could put a kiosk with some educational material. People might pull off there. Maybe that's where they're going to recharge their electric car or whatever, but put some education there. So we teach that respect for wilderness and help to create more stewards for the wilderness up here we all love.
You know, CJ, there hasn't been a lot of talk at the end of the trail loop. So that's a perfect area for pull-offs and a walking area and a biking area.
Heidi, this is Kelly Berg. Are you talking about the campground?
More or less. Yeah, there you go. I mean, there's already a parking area. I know that the Forest Service manages that area, but that truly is a safe area for people to walk and ride their bikes and enjoy the wilderness.
I agree.
So
Heidi, you're suggesting a more designated areas rather than changing the stretch of the Gunflint Trail, but
yep,
sections that are amenable to that.
So I should drive 10 to 15 miles to walk and bike?
I drive 40 miles to get away from humans, so we all make choices.
This is Kelly Berg again. I completely agree. When I came up here 31 years ago, I was an avid bicyclist, and I realized that the Gunflint Trail is not the area to be biking. It's not safe. It's not the purpose of it. And I accepted it. This is where I want to be, and I can bike somewhere else. It's not safe to bike in the Gunflint Trail.
I agree with both the women. I live right on the Gunflint Trail. Not many people in this little chat here can say that they live on the trail. Some of them are off the roads, quite a distance. And yes, I live on the Gunflint Trail. And yes, I actually go to County Road 92 and walk the old Gunflint Trail. I might go down Clearwater Road. It's actually fun to go explore some of these new areas. They're not private roads, they're public roads, and they're long. So it's kind of fun to go try and explore different areas on the trail. One area that might be interesting would be the Banadad ski entrance that's up by Loon Lake. There is really no way to safely pull in and out of that little driveway there. It's a lot of private land right around there, and it's right on the curve. So that might be something to address. I don't know if that's a possibility, because I know there's some beautiful big old white pines right on that. And I would really hate to see those white pines gone, just to make the road a little wider there for people to access that trail. That's one thing that you have to think of. Are you willing to lose some of your trees and some of the beauty on the side of the road for a bike path and a walking path?
And let's not forget that people drive 20 hours to experience the Gunflint Trail as it is.
Yeah, I don't think too many people drive to see the Gunflint Trail. I mean, it sounds like what we're talking about is making it better for cars. I don't think that's a very good thing to do. I mean, people don't drive to get to the Gunflint Road. They drive here to experience other things. So I think it's very valid to make it more accessible for people to walk between points on the trail safely, or bike, or whatever you want to do there. I don't think it's reasonable to say, no, it's just for cars. And that's what I'm hearing. Because if you redo the surface, that's only for cars. If you don't widen it, that's only for cars. I'm thinking that it should be more for just cars. Even going back to the history of the Gunflint Trail, which wasn't about cars at all, because they weren't there.
And I disagree with that, because my name is Dan Nelson. My parents used to run Jocko's Tour Lodge. We still have a place on Leo Lake. And emotionally, with the clear cutting and fires, blowdowns, I can tell you that emotionally and for what this area means to me, part of not having that tunnel of trees coming up to that short trail where you feel like you're in the middle of nowhere, that is a huge draw. I mean, I would that, and I think that there are other people that came to our resort and stuff where that's where you start to get that feeling of being on the Gunflint and being in what technically is probably not really a wilderness anymore, but what feels to modern people like a wilderness. And having extra, widening it out like they did on a couple of the areas there, brushing it out and all of that, it really takes that feel away. And that has a huge impact, I think, on people emotionally and perceptually. And I know it makes it not as safe, but it really is special. And it really is something that you notice when it's gone. At least I have. It's it is something that people would go to. And when you've got trails all along the shore and everything, there are other places people can go. I know if you're a resident and you want to go biking down the trail, it kind of sucks. But overall, you know, there is a value there, and there's something that will be gone if you just kind of start making everything safe and having all the amenities that people seem to expect nowadays.
People do travel huge distances to see the Gunflint Trail as it is. It's proven. And it's not just for cars, it's a destination. It is for you to get to your destination. If you want to bike or walk, you get in your car and use the Gunflint Trail to get where you want to bike or walk or see. The Gunflint Trail is not a bike path. It's not a walking path.
This is Kelly Berg. I totally agree with Heidi. I mean, there's thousands of people that just, they make the Gunflint Trail their day trip or whatever. There's tons of them that make it a destination to see the beauty of the Gunflint Trail.
So is it all about cars and trucks?
It's all about the destination.
But a destination could be walking and cycling. It doesn't have to be about cars.
That's right, off the Gunflint Trail. Walk and bike somewhere off the Gunflint Trail.
No, I'm talking about the Gunflint Trail.
Go ahead. Go ahead and walk and bike it.
Hey, Susan Scher here. Can I add something?
Yes.
I don't personally like walking where cars are going by. And I think Bonnie's idea of using some of the side roads that are much quieter are way more pleasant to walk on.
Just wanted to circle back to a couple comments about the loop at the end of the trail. Just wanted to clarify, it was a comment that there are trails for biking and walking there, or that there's other resources that could be developed to provide additional opportunities.
So right now there aren't specific walking and biking trails there. It's a narrow area, it's a slower speed. So people could enjoy that area if they're looking for a destination biking area.
You think other improvements like that would be a good idea for other portions, other sections of the trail? So another way to describe it would be if those are resources that could use a little bit of development, is that needed, you know, it be more pervasive along the trail itself? Or I should say off the trail, the way you're describing it.
Well, then you look at connectivity, you know, the few areas we have where you could put walking and biking or added shoulder area, you can't get there without driving there. I mean, it's kind of an all or nothing. Either you make a bike trail on the whole 60 miles or you don't.
No, that isn't quite accurate. You could do it intermittently. And, you know, doesn't have to be like what's along Highway 61. If you just added 8 feet of shoulder or 6 feet of shoulder, just something, you know, right now the paint stripe is 1 foot in from the edge of the asphalt. And then it diminishes from there. But, you know, I think you could just add 6 or 8 feet and not to be like what 61 is.
Where are you going to add that?
On the edge of the shoulder.
The whole 60 miles?
If I remember
right. You know, these are not even safe shoulders. There's not even a diversion point for a car to avoid something that's ahead.
I'm aware of that.
Susan Chair here again. If I remember right, several years ago, one of the highway engineers did want to add to the shoulders, and it's not allowed because of the historical status of the Gunflint Trail.
Yeah. So
I'm
what's
not
that
sure
about?
that we could
The
do
Scenic
it if we
Byway.
wanted. Yep.
So let's go back to gravel.
I agree.
But gravel wasn't safe for people also. So it's how to find the balance of what's safe for people to travel along the Gunflint Trail.
You mean travel by
preserving
car?
the wilderness.
You mean travel by car?
Correct.
Or
As well
truck.
as, yeah, I mean, we should look at what is safe for pedestrians and bicyclists as possible as well, not just to be car driven.
So this is a question for Jim Jorke. Are we going to reconnect with the folks that are at the Schaap Center right now? Have some kind of a wrap up or some kind of find out if we're sort of all on the same variety of pages?
Yeah, Dave, I did ask Robbie that question when we started, and my understanding is he wanted these two groups to be discrete. We were going to collect the comments from each group and then synthesize those and come back with some kind of, I don't know, CJ, some kind of like summary of the information that we gathered that would be shared probably in writing. I don't know if he has plans for another a meeting to discuss the feedback that's been collected, but I think these were intended to be two discrete groups.
Okay, I'm really grateful for the discussion and lots of different opinions. It's really helpful.
Yeah, the intention is to be back and reconvene whoever would like to attend again. And at that point in time, we'd be reviewing, a summation of everything that we've heard. I think these process, where we're really inviting any and all opinions to come out, it's a little more of a journey than it is a linear path, if that makes sense, which might be fitting for this project. But I think we have to, we've got a fair amount of ideas and feelings and opinions to chew through to, see what we can, how we define what we've heard thus far and bring it back to the group. But there will be additional opportunities to review where the application is headed, as well as all of the comments to date. So this isn't the end by any means.
I think it's important to acknowledge too that $25 million sounds like a lot of money, but when you're talking about $500,000 to $750,000 a mile just to repave, we're not going to be able to do all these things. And so this input is helpful to prioritize what can be done and what can't be done. And everybody's input is very valuable. So thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to see some of the scenic byways where the pullouts are being suggested have some signage that would indicate some of the Ojibwe history of the area. For example, some of the names of some of the lakes and the histories of it's sort of similar to what has come out of Ely with the names of a lot of the lakes over in that area. That would be interesting history for the Gunflint Trail community as well.
Let me just add that a model for that is going to be the Swamper Lake pull-off. it's been a long process, but the sign has been designed for that. It's got QR codes to scan and get information, and a lot of information about the Anishinaabe and other background associated with the lakes. If we can expand that, I think that would be huge. And as I started out in my original comments, I like to be respectful of people driving down behind me. If I'm doing 45 because I feel it's safe and somebody wants to pass me, it'd be really nice to have a place to pull over with good signage and a good kiosk that gives information to let those folks go by. So that remains a priority for Dave.
Thank you.
It sounds like our discussion here is winding down. Are there any additional comments? And certainly we've had a diversity of opinion on a whole range of topics here this evening. Really appreciate everyone keeping the tone civil and sharing their ideas. Are there any ideas that we haven't discussed that people would like to put forward before we adjourn? Going once.
When do we hear next from you or from whoever?
Yeah, I'll defer to CJ. It sounds like you and Robbie have been talking about that.
Yeah, the intention is to have the group reconvene in mid-January, maybe the back half of January, I think is going to be the time frame. So I would anticipate in the next week or two that Robbie will be reaching out with another kind of blast of information about meeting time, dates, location, all of that. And in the interim, I think most of our work is going to continue to be collecting information and making determinations what makes sense and what's the right fit for the project ask or the application. And that would be, up for review and further comment the next time we get together. The process is not intended to establish any final application or decisions by that mid-late January timeframe. That would be happening in February as the application becomes finalized. I think the things that and the content and going back to last year's application that Robbie made was really specific to the remediation of the road surface. And in this case, there is also some culvert replacement. So if there's sort of two halves to the project, if we could think about it that way, there's really just an opportunity to repair the pavement surface for extensive portions of the trail. And then I think a lot of what we've been discussing tonight is really just about community needs, wants, and the opportunities for other amenities with the byway and the drive itself. So, and we certainly heard a lot of opinions. So thank you for everybody's input. It's much appreciated.
And I just want to know. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Heidi.
And we haven't brought it up tonight, which is amazing, but there's not a lot of places to go to the bathroom along the trail. But I know that's already in your notes because it's been brought up numerous times over the last 30 years.
I will add it to tonight's notes as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
So there's a question in the chat about how people can make comments if they want to after the fact or we're not in the meeting room. Any written comments can be sent to Robbie Hass. His email address is robert.has@co.mn.us. And his email address is also available through the county's website. So again, I'd just like to thank everybody for your time tonight. It's been a really good discussion. We obviously all feel very passionate about the Gunflint. It is a unique resource. It has a unique history, and it's something worth protecting and preserving. And you know, this grant will give us an opportunity to do that. And we really want to make sure that whatever the application ends up including, that it is a reflection of the input that you all have provided. So thank you for being here tonight. Be safe out on the roads, and take care.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good night.